I'll hear nice guys say, moderation in all things. Do we really fucking believe that? Yeah, I'll take rat poison in moderation. No, there is no moderation in all things. We need to strive for imbalance, moderation, color outside the lines. All right, I got your attention yet? No man became famous, created great things, or found happiness or freedom through seeking moderation and balance. The happiest people I've ever known, the most successful people I've ever known, tend to live at the extremes, at least in some areas of life. They're typically not super balanced people. You guys should know me by now. If I start a series on something, I think it's going to be 3 or 4 lessons, and next thing you know, it's a book. And so we're on lesson 5 of freedom, and I'm charting it out, and it keeps growing and taking a life of its own. This series of lessons on freedom, and I think we may have at least 10 of them by the time we're done. 10 lessons on freedom. And I'm enjoying them because so much of it is just like unexpected stuff that's coming up as I dive into this idea around freedom. And the muse seems to really be working on me, really just saying, yeah, this, and this. And so this particular lesson is one that I didn't even see coming, right? This was not in a plan. Oh yeah, I need to talk about this in the series on freedom. It just kind of came up in a way that I just couldn't ignore it. And so I'm really excited to dive into it. So in this series of lessons on freedom, we've talked about how freedom is a universal desire. While we have this drive, this human drive to connect and be part of a tribe, part of a whole, we also have this drive for differentiation, for independence, for freedom, for self-autonomy. And those two things, I think, rub against each other in a positive way that spark a lot of growth and evolution. And so one of the key parts on the series of freedom is that there are so many paradoxes. I mean, one of the most basic paradoxes of freedom is if you choose freedom and choose one option, you basically lost your freedom to choose the other options, right? You took them off the plate. And so there's so many paradoxes, and that's why I'm having so much fun about it. And also finding out there's no real solutions. There's only trade-offs. There's always going to be that tension between belonging and independence, security and the unknown. That's why I'm having so much fun really diving in to all the different themes of freedom that keep coming up. And as I've defined, my definition of freedom as it's evolved is the number of viable options. And they're viable options. Me playing in the NBA or Major League Baseball or the NFL is not a viable option, right? So, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. But the number of viable options or choices we have, or the number of viable options and choices we are aware that we have, is the basic palette that we get to paint on in terms of how we live free. Okay. So it's choices or options that we're aware of and that we can consciously choose to say, yes, that's where my yes is going to go. And my premise is freedom scares us and we tend to give it away. We tend to run away from it. We tend to close down. We tend to play it safe. We tend to find the anchors that hold us down in place because we're afraid of spinning off into nothingness, into that existential unknown of what's out there if I let go of the familiar. Now, lesson number 5, that's this week's lesson. Another paradox of freedom, and I'm calling it the wisdom of living at the extremes. Now, that may sound kind of weird. What? What has that got to do with freedom? So the premise of this lesson is freedom is not found from coloring between the lines. Happiness, success, and freedom come from living outside of the rules and expectations and norms of culture and society and family and partner or spouse. It's getting out of balance. I know that may sound really weird to most of us nice guys. It goes against kind of a core nice guy mentality of life. For example, I hear nice guys use the term a lot. Well, I just want to find the balance between blah, blah, blah. I was doing an interview this morning with a guy that he's interviewed me a couple of other times. He specializes in helping men breaking free from pornography. And he said something about finding the balance. So I hear that a lot from nice guy types. And I think trying to find the balance of anything usually is coming from a fear-based way of trying to resolve problems. It's a don't rock the boat, don't upset anybody, don't draw too much attention, get it right approach to trying to deal with life and life's choices. It's kind of like trying to find the tipping point between two toxic extremes. Well, it doesn't exist. But yet we'll go about, yeah, I just want to find some balance. I want to live in balance. Or the other one, I'll hear a nice guy say, moderation in all things. Do we really fucking believe that? Yeah, I'll take rat poison in moderation. I'll smoke meth in moderation. No, there is no moderation in all things. Premise of this lesson is we need to strive for imbalance. Fuck moderation. Color outside the lines. All right, I got your attention yet? Have I woken everybody up yet? So, my premise is no man became famous, created great things, or found happiness or freedom through seeking moderation and balance. Don't think it's ever happened. In my experience, the happiest people I've ever known, the most successful people I've ever known, tend to live at the extremes, at least in some areas of life. They're typically not super balanced people. They're kind of, a little bit off balance, a little bit out of whack. And that's part of their magic, their genius, their charisma, their attraction is, the more balanced we are, it's that Teflon man I talk about in No More Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah, I'm balanced. I'm smooth. How come nobody notices me? How come I don't stand out? Well, most of us don't really want to stand out. And so, like I said, it seems like the happiest, most successful people I know, whether they're trying to stand out or not, are usually out of balance. I mean, think of, maybe cultural icons. Think of a Warren Buffett. Think Warren Buffett's in balance? That guy's a multi billionaire, and he gets up and works multiple hours every day. Lives in the same house he bought in the 1950s, drives an old car. He's out of balance. He does one thing and does it really, really well. Bill Gates, he famously used to say in interviews, first 7 years of running Microsoft, he never took a day off. That motherfucker was out of balance. You think Steve Jobs was in balance? That guy, lived out of balance. I mean, other people, well, no matter what we think of them, Elon Musk, you think he's a balanced dude? I don't think so. He's at the extremes. And without getting into a political discussion, do you think that Donald Trump would have gotten elected to be president if he was a real balanced, moderation and everything kind of guy? Probably not. How about your sports fans? Michael Jordan. Do you think that guy was a real, everything in moderation kind of guy? No, that guy lived at the extremes. Whether he's playing basketball, baseball, or gambling on golf, that guy is out of balance. But we know their names, right? They've accomplished great things. Now, I'm not saying we have to, emulate their lives or want to be like them, but the people that we know of that grab our attention, that make a mark in history, were not moderation in all things, seek the balance kind of people. What artist is remembered for cutting his fucking ear off and sending it to some guy that, is kind of, he was getting on his nerves? So no one in our history, nobody that we've ever been attracted to or drawn to or looked up to or respected, no one ever stood out because they were mediocre, because they stayed within the lines. Am I making sense? Okay. All right, let's play with this. Think of one historical person. It might still be alive. Might be an athlete that you like, a musician that you like, an artist, an author, an actor, a politician. I don't care. One person whom you hold in high regard, or you respect, or you look up to, or you emulate. Write them in the chat box. That person's name, and if you can, if anything comes to mind, where were they out of balance? What about them do you like? And is it because the ways that they were out of balance or outside of the lines? Henry Ford right, comes up. Hypnotic Edge by John Gartner's book is based on the entire premise. Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky. Yeah, Bill was not. Bill was known for just having his extremes. His number one aide and lieutenant throughout the years wrote a biography about him, and I think the title of it was "What's Next." What's next? There's more. There's more. So yeah, Clinton was. I actually thought of him earlier today when thinking of people out of balance. Frank Sinatra. What a badass dude. Yeah, that guy wasn't, he was way out of bounds. President Andrew Jackson, his ruthlessness. Novak Dvorak stood up for the health autonomy. Billy Beane, former GM of the Oakland A's. Yeah, when he was saying analytics, 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 and everybody goes, "You're crazy, man. You're crazy." Yeah, he was crazy. Phil Knight, founder of Nike. Robert Glover. Thanks for Darren. So we know these names and they're in our psyche because they were out there. They were out there. Okay. Why does seeking balance rob us of our freedom? Well, there's probably many reasons, but one, this just dawned on me. I was reading a book the other day about a guy that's out of balance. Tim Ferriss had recommended this book called The Man Who Quit Money. And it's this guy, real life story about a guy that through, an evolution and process of stuff, just gave up money, just quit living with money. Didn't have a job, didn't earn money, didn't pay money for anything. Lived in caves in Moab, I think in Utah. And it's a really good book. I really liked it. But they brought up a point in there that when you're seeking balance, moderation, you're constantly making compromises. This against this against this. You got to keep kind of balancing things out, and that involves a lot of compromises. And compromise is one of the quickest ways I know to start losing our integrity, right? And most of the time when we compromise, we're not really compromising, we're caving. We're giving in on something that's important to us, going along to get along. So most of the time, again, we're caving, not compromising. We're probably not doing anything well if we're trying to stay in balance. We're not risking. And what great thing was ever won without risk? Reward is won through risk. So playing it safe or seeking balance never created anything truly amazing. Okay, so let's dwell in reality here. One of the things we've already kind of been figuring out with all the trade-offs and paradoxes of freedom is you can't do everything. And the truth is, you can't do many things well. Well, thinking about this lesson this afternoon, I wrote down, I'd love to be building Integration Nation, leading workshops, speaking at events, coaching, getting my own coaching, being in my own men's program, writing books, developing new products, spending time with my friends, my wife, my dog, my son, my granddaughter, taking care of my house, going camping, eating really healthy, hitting the gym regularly, watching podcasts, doing interviews, having sex, traveling. I would love to be doing all of those things. I can't. I can't. And I can do some of them pretty well. Some of them I can put a lot of energy into. Most of them, I get to them when I get to them, if I get to them. Yeah, I'd love to be writing more books, but since I've been working on Integration Nation, I've just had to put it aside. We're building a new website. I'm launching, I got a new Instagram team. There's always things I want to be doing. And, to be able to do as many as I can, I've got to delegate well. I got to get good people working with me to take on a lot of it. But there's a lot of things I would love that I can't do them all. Or if nothing else, I can't do any, if I try to do them all, I'm not doing any of them really well. I only have so much time, energy, and bandwidth. So the way I look at it, I've been working on this actually for probably over 20 years of trying to figure out what is the formula that works for me in life. I started figuring this out back during my second marriage of, can I be an entrepreneur and run my own business? Can I landscape my own yard? Can I be a good husband to my wife? Can I spend time with my kids? Can I clean my garage? Can I get to the gym? I realized, I can't do them all and do them all well. And what I realize, I can put a lot of energy. I can bring my A game to about two and a half things at a time. That's about it. Two and a half major endeavors at a time. Now, most areas in my life, a couple areas you're going to get an A for a grade. Most are going to get a B, a C, even a D. Right? Right now, I'm getting an F on writing books. I want to do it, but something else is getting an A right now is going to have to take a back seat and go get a C if I'm going to move books up to giving that an A. Right? That's just always the way it's going to be about something. And as we're going to talk in a minute, we got to make wise choices. So I have to decide what's going to get the bulk of my energy and my attention. Now, here's what I've decided. I would rather get an A plus in one or two of the most important areas of my life, and I'm okay with getting C's and D's and everything else. I was doing the math on this last night. There's lots of different ways we can get a 2-point grade average, with A being 4 points, B being 3 points, C being two, D being one, F being zero. I can make say six things in life, six important things. I can make straight C's and get a 2.0. Pretty mediocre, average, but I'm covering a lot of bases, but probably none of them really well. Or I can make two A's and four D's and get a 2.0. That's actually more attractive to me. I don't like D's. I don't think I've ever gotten a D in my life. Got a lot of C's. I was good at C's through junior high and high school. Finally figured out how good it feels to make A's. But I'd rather get two A's and four D's, or one A, two B's, one C, one D, and one F. It's still a 2.0. I've done the math on it, right? So I would rather do that. One A, two B's, one C, one D, and one F than straight C's. Because at least some things getting an A and a couple of things are getting at least a B effort from me. Okay, have I lost you guys, or is this making sense? You're getting the core point here, right? Now, so let me say this. I believe it is best if you consciously choose the extremes you're going to live at and not just falling into them or having them imposed on you. Probably on almost every lesson, I've mentioned that quote that somebody put in the chat box in the very first lesson by Christopher Hitchens: choose your regrets wisely. If I'm going to make a D in something, an F in something, I want that to be as much of a conscious choice as what I make the A's in. Otherwise, I'm not really choosing. So if I'm going to make an F, for right now, if I'm not writing any books, I do want to write more books before I die. I really do. But at some point, I have to make it a conscious A effort endeavor. And that means something that's right now in the A position is going to have to get moved down somewhere. And so right now, I'm choosing for writing books to be an F, as much as I hate to say it, as much as that pains me. But there are other things right now that are higher priority. Right now, my higher priorities are running Integration Nation, doing the things that let me pay my bills, getting to speak at some programs. And really, an aid has been how I've been doing my diet for the last 10 months, counting macros every day, entering them into an app. I'm now carrying 80 kilos, what I weighed when I was in my 30s. Now, I'd love to get my gym workouts up to at least a B. Right now, they're probably at a C. Okay, but something's got to get shuffled. Now, the idea is let's do this as consciously as possible. Now, when I advocate for you guys being out of balance, I'm not talking about working too many hours at a crappy job that you hate. I'm not talking about that. All right? I'm not talking about being codependent and giving too much to a toxic relationship or neglecting yourself in any fundamental way, or in general, cutting off any of your body parts and sending them to people that piss you off. I'm not advocating that kind of extreme. I'm talking about honoring your deepest passions and concerns, acting with your deepest integrity, making the difference in the cosmos that you were put here to make. So that means you have to decide where you will put your focus and make your mark, where you will be the most out of balance. So if I decide that my work and my wife and my physical health are my highest priorities, I have to be willing to let some other things suffer as a result. And you do too. To choose is to renounce. So choose your regrets wisely. Again, we can cycle through these. At some point, I may cycle out of something here and bring writing books to a lot higher place. We can do that. But something will always have to trade places to some degree, at least for some amount of time. Maybe short bursts of time, we can really put a bunch of energy into maybe four top things. But we can't do that for very long. So don't try. Something will always have to be sacrificed or take a back seat to really show up for that one or two things. So let's not sweat it. Let's not worry about it. Don't let's okay. Right now I'm not writing any books. I'll get to it. Right now I got two guitars sitting right next to me. I'm not practicing or playing them. That's okay. I'll get to it. At one point they'll move up at least to a C or a B spot. That's okay. I'll get to it. Gandhi, talk about somebody that lived at the extremes, right? Nonviolent peace through starving yourself. That guy made an impact at the extremes. He said, whatever you do will most likely be insignificant, but it is still important that you do it. Yeah, I really like that. Whatever I do might be insignificant in the big picture of things, but it's still important that I do it. Do it with all of my heart, my head, my soul, my cock. Don't hold anything back. Get out of balance because that's freedom. Okay, I'm going to give you guys some discussion questions. What area in life are you at the extreme, but not by choice or desire? So, where are you out of balance, but not in a way that you've chosen or as part of your passion or your purpose or your karma? Okay, because that happens to us. I know people, I'm just too busy. I'm working all the time. I go, do you fucking love your job? No, I hate it. Then what the fuck are you doing? Right? There's no logic in that. All right, second question. Where are you trying to multitask too many things and not doing any of them well? Three, if you were to really dive all into something, what would it be? And what would it look like? What would it look like you diving all into that thing? Really let your imagination go. Let your passion go. Let yourself feel what it would be like to really get Vincent van Gogh extreme on something, right? Gandhi extreme on something. And what other things might suffer as a result? Let's count the cost. Let's choose our regrets wisely. Yeah. So there's actually, I don't know, there's probably a few different questions in there. Let me see if I can ferret out.
Yeah, really?
Give at least one coherent answer to that.
Right.
Um, I'm a big believer in being conscious in this process, but also holding on loosely to it, if that makes sense. That I did not have in my long-term plans to build a men's membership program. Um, I do have in my long-term plans to write several books, but it's funny. I'm putting all my energy into a men's membership program and not writing books. So I think there's a time that you hold on loosely. And I think there's some times where you go at a pace that you know will burn you out if you stick with it indefinitely. And sometimes knowing that it's not indefinite gives you the energy to stick with it, knowing that it at some point something will shift, knowing you're going to take a vacation, knowing you're going to take a day off, knowing you're going to have a sabbatical. Those are all things that allow you to dive in fully to something and go, and I can take a break at some point. And knowing that somewhere in there, the cosmos and all of its wisdom may strike you down with COVID, with a tumor, with a loss of relationship, with something that goes, oh, I guess I'm taking the break now. I guess I'm paying attention to something else now. I'm redirecting attention now. And so that's where I think we have to hold on loosely. And it's not that we just get whipped by every wind or current or pull or draw, because I'm not really advocating that. Um, but it's sometimes we have to say, okay, uh, you know, to change of plan. well, somebody gave me a, they were in the acting world, like something like change of scene, all right, we're going to change about next act. And we go, okay, this is what's calling me. This is what is demanding my attention. How do I dive all into that and not resent it or keep wishing I was doing the other thing? I'm not, dissing on doing several things well enough. I mean, that's okay. That's all right. I'm just saying though, it kind of like when we were talking with the coaches on our breakout room, one of the coaches mentioned they really would love to coach, but they really have a really good day job, and it's too good of a job to leave. So, for example, some things can actually become golden handcuffs to us that, it's not our passion, it's not our deepest desire, it's not how we want it, but they're too good to kind of walk away from or not do. Could be a job, could be something else. And so all I'm saying is that doing a lot of things well enough rarely ignites us, inspires us, ignites others, leads to open doors of opportunity. So we go, well, that's not on the schedule, so I'm not going to go there. It unconsciously it becomes golden handcuffs that, life's good enough, right? I'm in good enough shape. My job's good enough. Where I live's good enough. But none of it is spectacular or lighting a fire under us or inspiring us to change the world, to put a dent in the universe. And again, I think this stuff comes in waves where sometimes the wave just comes and catches us and says, I'm gonna take you for a ride. Well, we're gonna surf that wave, or we're gonna struggle against it like we're drowning, right? So I'd say let's surf it. So really what I'm saying is, yeah, keep doing the things you do well. But notice the tendency of it kind of to lull you to sleep, to same old, same old. And in that way, it does take your freedom away. It does take the choices, or it does take you saying yes to an opportunity that's outside of the norm, outside of your day in and day out routine. Perfectionism can be a real killer. It really can. And I'm thinking, just like, I keep quoting, choose your regrets, choose your perfectionism, choose what really, where's your deepest desire to bring that part of you that wants to just own that thing and create a work of art. All right. Um, because, they say perfection is the enemy of good enough. A lot of things in life can be good enough. A lot of things in life. The amount I go to the gym is good enough. Is it something that I think I'm going to bring some more focus to? Yeah. Um, will I ever get perfect at it? No, no reason to. But I can bring more focus and energy to it. So if your perfectionism is the enemy of good enough for things that should just be good enough, get them done and move on. Right? Don't just linger over them thinking it's got to be perfect or better or this or that. And then free that energy up to go hit some motherfucker out of the park. Just some part of your life. You just light a rocket under it. And still be aware of the perfectionism of how it might get in the way of you taking risks, of you putting something out into the world, because you're afraid it's not good enough yet, perfect enough. Um, be willing to put some shit out in the world that may not be done yet, but you can still keep, honing on it after you put it out there. So yeah, that perfectionism can be a real killer. It can keep us stuck. While we think we're being, one thing that I say is that, most people aren't perfectionists, they're imperfectionists. And actually, we're going to have a guest in a couple months. A guy, his name is Oliver Burkeman. He wrote a book, 10,000 Weeks, or 4,000 Weeks, about we only got about 4,000 weeks to live. We can't do everything, so we better pick what we're going to do. He just wrote a book called Meditation for Mortals, but his newsletter is called The Imperfectionist. And I like that because perfectionism can be a killer, it can be a cancer. So bring your focus to what's most important. Everything else, it's okay to make a C. It's all right. Mail it in. It doesn't matter.